What will heaven be like is a question that a lot of us ask ourselves. Most of us in this room, I hope everyone in this room is saved, and that's your next destination. If it's not, we're going to go into that in detail after this. But where are you going? Why get saved? And then go to a place that I don't quite understand. What's this all about? Some believe in the sense that heaven's like a spiritual place. Some believe that there is a heaven and a hell. Some people believe there's only a heaven. There's not a hell, because how could God allow there to be a hell? What I do know about heaven is what Jesus said, and he says, "No, but I have a very good friend who was." He came there and he told us about it. He showed it to us, and he said, "He is the way, the truth, and the life." So let's take a little journey this morning for a few minutes. That's right. Thank you, Bernard. I want you to just imagine for just one moment. So close your eyes. And this is going to be that moment where we take that last breath. That last moment that we're here with our friends, our loved ones. Our hearts just stopped. We're no longer part of this world. What will it feel like? Think about that. Where will I be when this happens? Who will be with me when this happens? Will I feel any more pain? Will I see that bright light? Will it hurt? Will I be driving down the road with my loved ones? Will the love of my life be holding me when I leave this world? Jesus said in John chapter 18, verse 36, he said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place." When we think of God, and we try to picture him in our finite minds, it's such a difficult thing for us to even understand or even begin to understand. Because God is not a physical thing, he's a spirit. He's a spiritual thing. And so then we have to start defining in our minds, okay, what is a spiritual thing? What exactly is that? When we go to heaven, we'll have a new body and a new mind. This one will be all cleaned up. No more junk in there. Some would believe, and I believe this, heaven is to be with God, and their definition of hell would be to not be with God. It's kind of a simple approach to separate the two. Is eternal separation from God is hell. No matter what your friends have told you, or you've read, or you've learned other places. The bottom line is, if you're not in heaven, you're not with God. You're not in that place. And that will be hell. I don't care how you want to describe it. And I remember watching Jimmy Swaggart and all those pounding on the podium and everything and trying to convince us. But the bottom line is all that doesn't mean anything compared to the fact of heaven is where we want to go. That is the place we want to be. And hell is not the place we want to be. I think we can all agree on that. Another fact, mathematically speaking, is 1 out of 1 and 10 out of 10 and 100 out of 100 people are going to die physically. It's a fact. So at some point, if you don't make the decision now, you're going to have a problem on your hands when you do leave this world, because there's going to be two places. It's either heaven or hell. He says only those who are prepared to die are really ready to live. So are you prepared to die, which means are you really ready to live? Because heaven is an eternal place, so that is eternity. What we're here on this planet is a very short length of time. We're just here 1 year, 2 years, 50 years, 100 years. My dad's 95. A lot of years. And it's such a short time, compared to eternity, right? Sometimes it gets a little confusing when we talk about heaven, too, because there's 3 different heavens that are referred to in the Bible. There's the first heaven, which is like the air and the clouds and all that. And a lot of us have been to that heaven. We've flown in a plane, right? So you've been up in the heavens where the birds go. Now, most of us in this room, I'm pretty sure, haven't been to what is considered the second heaven, which is the moon and stars. I know my mom and my wife more than once probably wanted to send me to the moon. But haven't been there yet. And then there's the third heaven, which is not anything that we can see from here, because it's a spiritual place. It's not like a physical place. Here's the address, like 13624 South Park where we live. There's not an address like that, because it's a spiritual place that we're all going to go to at some point. So to be clear, when you're studying the scriptures and looking at that there's different references to heaven. There's, the first heaven, the second heaven, and the third heaven. The third heaven is the goal that I want you guys all to shoot for, okay? But if you want to practice, go for a flight. You can be in the first heaven. Or jump out of a plane if you're really brave. What happens in hell? Some would say absolutely nothing. What happens in heaven? Opposite. Everything. Absolutely everything's happening in heaven. When we're parting and when we leave here, will I hear my loved ones cry anymore? Well, the scriptures are pretty clear on that. It says in Revelations, it says, God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying. So if there's any crybabies, that won't be happening in heaven. There's no more crying. Although there was something that happened that the guys and I talked about this morning in our class, and there's different kinds of tears. There's tears of sadness, and then there's just tears of joy. And a number of the gentlemen in our class have witnessed both. But it seemed like the tears of joy were the best one. And those of you that haven't cried with joy sometime, try it. It's a pretty good one. It's so fulfilling. It's a taste of what we might see when we get to go to heaven someday. Will we recognize our loved ones in heaven? Of course, we'll know certain things because that's part of our design, and that there will be joy. But will we know our loved ones in heaven? God alone knows that one. I have heard the term, and I'm sure you have, kindred spirits. Well, I got news for you. When you're in heaven, you're going to be a spirit. You'll have a new body, new mind, but you're going to be a spirit. So it's going to be different. So get ready for that. That's why they say there's no more pain in heaven. You're not going to hurt, because now you are a spirit. We've gone through a change. When it says being born again, when we're born into the Father, through Jesus Christ and everything, that's a new life. And when you go to heaven, it's going to be a new life. Some would tell you that right now we are already in heaven. We are already there because of our relationship with God. But right now I'm still feeling the pains in my back. And I still got to go to work and all that. But maybe we are, maybe we're not. Question I see quite often people ask is, will my pets be in heaven? And any of those that have been in a pastoral position or a ministerial position, tough one, right? Well, I can tell you I discovered some things in the Bible. Talks about some birds. Luke 12:6, are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 pennies? Yet not one of them is forgotten by God. Revelation 19:14, 11 through 14 talks about Jesus is going to arrive on what? A white horse. So I guess at least we know they got white horses up there. Okay? So there are animals in heaven, right? Remember, whenever we look at the Bible, it's like when you run through the newspaper, right? It's just the headlines. We're not getting the whole picture. He leaves that up to us and the Holy Spirit that dwells in us to understand some of these mysteries. There's a lot of stuff contained in this book, but not all of it could be put in there, and he didn't want to try to explain it all to me, because then he'd have to explain it to Paul a different way, and to Al a different way, and to Lorna a different way, for us to understand. But he gave us the Holy Spirit to help us understand some of these things. So I'm going to tell you, I don't know if the pets are definitely going to be there, but I'll tell you what, I know there's animals there. It's in the Bible. You can look it up. And I'm also going to tell you that why not? Right? Why not? We voted on it and it's passed. Right? And we have a second. Will we remember our former life when we're in heaven? Well, this is a tough one, because when you think about it, when we leave this world, our body dies. It's either cremated, put in a hole, buried, something. But our brain ceases to exist, which contains our mind. So will our mind transfer with us to heaven? Will we be able to remember everything that took place when we're here on the earth? Don't think so. See, we're going to receive a new mind and a new body. And it's all going to be cleaned up. Kind of like when Mom used to put you in the bath and scrub you down and everything, get you ready for church or whatever. He's going to clean us up. He's going to take care of all that stuff. And there's a lot of this stuff up here that I'm glad it's not going to go with me, because I want to leave it behind. It's all good. What is he saying? Naked I came into this world, naked I'll leave. Right? We're going to get a new body, get a new outfit. He's going to take care of us. He's got this under control. Will you know your former kindred spirits in heaven? Most likely. Will you remember every single detail here on the planet? Absolutely not. It doesn't matter anymore. It really won't, because we're going to have other things that we're dealing with in heaven. Will there be music in heaven? Yep. So that's another thing we know about heaven, right? There's going to be music. It's going to be pretty good. I don't know if it's going to be country. I don't know what it's going to be, but I know we're all going to like it, which is going to be different, because everybody's going to like the same kind of music. Isn't that amazing to think about? Is all of us like the same kind of music for a change? But that's going to be God's music. That's the station we're going to be on. God's station, right? Will we know everything in heaven? I don't think so. Can we learn an awful lot? Absolutely. Because he said he's going to answer those questions, those mysteries will become some. The guys and I have spent, I don't know, it was 8 weeks, at least, in the 13th chapter of 1 Corinthians, the love chapter, all 13 verses. And we had a struggle because the guy that was leading it couldn't wrap his head around what's really going on in there, except to state the fact that that chapter is about God's love. And any time one of you picks up that book, if you'd please just put God's in front of the word love or charity, when you read through it, it'll start to make sense finally, okay? Struggle with that because God's love is so unexplainable as God's grace. Pastor Dave's been preaching about God's grace since way before I've ever known him. And he still hasn't run out of stuff to talk about because God's grace is so wide and so big. And the same thing about heaven. There's so many unanswered things because it's not going to make sense to me what he tries to show us, because the other guys that went to heaven, one was Jesus, and he told us some stuff that we read a little bit about heaven. And then there was Paul, who went to heaven, and we were looking at that in the second Corinthians 12, was it? Chapter 12. He went there, but he says, I ain't telling you guys about it. I ain't telling you nothing. I was there, but maybe I wasn't. And the way he puts it, you'll just love it. The first 2 or 3 verses, 4 verses of chapter 12 in the second Corinthians. Look at that. Because there's a guy that's escaping around. He's not going to tell us nothing. He got to experience heaven, but it was so awesome that he didn't even know how to bother to put it into words just to tell us, guys, you want to go there. This is going to be awesome. You're going to love it here. Heaven is a wonderful place. There's a lot of other questions that you may have about heaven. If you have them and you want to talk to me about it, I'd love to talk to you about it. And together we're going to figure them out. There's another guy that went to heaven. His name was John. And those of you who have read the book of Revelation, I always want to say Revelations, but it's Revelation, because there was just one revelation there. He told us a lot about the streets of gold that we sang about in that one song, I'm Satisfied, that one. He talked about that and the New Jerusalem coming down and all that, and some descriptions of that for us to think about. So there's a little taste of heaven. But I was thinking about heaven and trying to figure out how to explain it in a sense. What if we were like little babies and we're looking at a brand new 2019 Trailblazer? We're going, wow, I'm a 6-month-old baby. I'm going, whatever, right? But when I'm 40 years old, look at that, I'm going, all right, it's got power steering, it's got brakes, it's got four-wheel drive. Because, see, when I'm 40 years old, I can see things differently than when I'm 6 months old. Well, guess what? Everybody in this room is 6 months old. You're just a bunch of babies when it comes to heaven, because we can't even begin to understand what's going on up there, right? Not even begin to. We get a little taste of heaven, but we really can't understand it because we're just a bunch of 6-month-old little babies. And God said in that 13th chapter that we spent so much time in, of 1 Corinthians, the love chapter, that this stuff, we're not going to really see it clearly now. It's going to be like a glass mirror in the bathroom when Paul's been in the shower too long and you can't see in there. That's how we're going to see, right? We just can't see that, but once we get to heaven, it's going to be a lot clearer. My final challenge to everyone in this room is, if you don't know Jesus, you saw a bunch of elders roaming around here during the prayer time, any one of them could walk you down that road so you can have an opportunity to go to heaven. And there's some in this room that have loved ones that are not going, as far as we know. They're not going to make heaven. And what God is very thorough in reminding me of this fact, he says, well, then pray to me about it. Keep bringing it up, Brad. Let me know. Because prayer does change things. And anybody in this room doesn't believe that, you're missing something. Prayer does change things. So pray about it. Pray to God. Say, hey, don't forget Joe Bob. God, you remember Joe Bob? I want him up there with me because he's my best buddy. We play chess together and we go I want him up there with me. We're a kindred spirit. Keep praying to God. Remind him of the fact that you want that specific person with you up there in one of the greatest places in the entire world. For God so loved the world that he gave his only child, right? That whosoever believes in him should have everlasting life. So we all get to have that everlasting life in heaven, those that know him. And those that don't, please, if you feel that tugging on your heart, don't leave this building until you've talked to somebody about it at least, okay? I'm not going to try to convince you of anything. Just plant the seed. God does all the work. He does it all. There's nothing that any of us here can do, but God does it all. Well, thank you so much this morning for having a little bit of time with me in heaven. And I look forward to being with you all there soon.